Happy holidays, everybody. This is David Zere, and you are watching another super informative edition of Breaking Point on the incredible Real America's Voice News. The Biden administration is making excuses for looting across the country, and we're back to this root cause. You know, Jen Psaki saying there's a root cause for it. A lot of BS going on, but we have a great show for you today. I have the incredible Ed Henry with us. And he has joined the network at Real America's Voice News. And I have Noah Malgiri running for Congress in Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. He's a JAG lawyer, an Army veteran. And Larry Ward from the Constitutional Rights PAC, and Texas State Rep Steve Toth. He's a state rep in Texas trying to protect Texans from mandates, trying to get the governor on board. So we are tired of being told that we are bad people for being the good people, right? In your lifetime, has a Democrat ever lowered your taxes? That's what I want to know. Gingrich did it in '96. He forced the hand of Clinton, shut down the government, and the economy took off like a rocket ship after '87 to '95 was like the deepest recession we're in for many years. We had the peace dividend. Long Island, New York, we got crushed, you know, with airplane manufacturing. And that economy came back after those tax cuts. And Trump did it for us. Who else has done it for you? So let's ask that for the next election, in the midterm elections. Who's really going to help us? And I think Trump's more of a populist. It doesn't matter what party you are. But, you know, the bottom 10% of wage earners benefited the most under the Trump administration. And, you know, is there a new America? Are parents having their doors kicked in for being anti-CRT and parental homeschooling activists and going against the school boards? Well, it's happening in America. It's very concerning. And is the Western world moving towards a dark, socialistic, fascistic style of government? It's kind of a combination of like Orwell and socialism. It's kind of scary. Austria, Australia. What's going on in the Baltic states, you know, people being dragged out of their homes for not being vaccinated. And also, one more thing, there was a recent red wave on the East Coast, and probably for 2022 midterms, but what does it mean? Are you going to hold your elected officials to the fire and make sure that they work for you, cut regulation, cut taxes, and not just have a majority? Absolute power corrupts. And we see that with all these Democratic blue state administrations cracking down on your lifestyle, and they have ultimate control over you. And one more thing, black market sales dropped about 28%, brick and mortar retail, and about 1.7% for online. Anyway, let's get right into the show. I'm so honored to have with us Ed Henry. He's a legend in the news business. And welcome to the show.
So great to be on with you. You know, right here in West Palm, it's great to welcome you because we've got a couple barbershops right outside the studio. When I look at the top of your show, which I enjoy on the weekends, we got to get a new barbershop. We'll get you in a Florida barbershop. You'll have the New York, the Long Island one, which is where I'm from, too. So we have a lot in common.
Oh, that's funny. I used to do a local news show on Long Island, went out to about 2.8 million people with News 12, and I did about 60 episodes of Long Island Talks Trump. We went to different venues. I argued with liberals from the barber chair, from the fishing boat, from the miniature golf course.
Doing it. We had you on in the off-year elections, Dr. Gina and I. We had a blast with you. We're covering New Jersey and New York.
Yeah.
You do a fabulous job, so it's great to be on with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wanted to get into it. You know, I just wanted to get a sense of, you know, you're from the Northeast. You're from my area in New York. Went to the same high school, but didn't know each other back then. Why did you get into journalism, and what propelled you to,
you know,
compelled you?
I always wanted to have a front row seat on history, and I feel fortunate that I've been able to do that, covering Congress, covering the White House, covering Democratic and Republican administrations, and watching all of these dramatic moments, traveling around the world with Donald Trump when he was president. I was there when he signed that agreement with Kim Jong-un the first time in Singapore. I was with him in Hanoi. When it kind of fell apart, you know, we were thinking there was going to be a round two and that they were going to move the ball forward, and it sort of went backwards there. And part of that was Donald Trump maybe being a little bit like Reagan and saying, I'm walking away, like Reagan did at Reykjavik, and saying, you're going to have to eventually come back to the table. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. So I always wanted to be on the, you know, at the front row seat for those kind of historic moments, and I'm thrilled to have this opportunity with Real America's Voice as well.
So I've been a taxpayer advocate. I've been in politics for about 35 years. Went to communist Russia in '86. Didn't, you know, it was a horrible experience. But, you know, I'm coming in from the outside, right? I'm in business. I'm fighting for New Yorkers. The guy who opens the gate for his crews every day, there was no representation. But one thing I could say is a Real America's Voice, being on the ground for like 3 years with them, all the Trump rallies and all the events and CPAC and Turning Point, that's real America. And these people are genuine and awesome, and they've been painted as criminals and insurrectionists, and it's very upsetting.
It's disgusting that the current administration, I'm a journalist, I don't normally pick sides in all of this, but I try to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And if the facts support it, it's not really, commentary or an opinion. This administration, its Justice Department, declared that if you're a parent and you're at a school board and you're fighting against, say, critical race theory and standing up for what your kids are being taught and saying, I don't want that, you could be labeled a domestic terrorist, and the FBI could be knocking down your door. And I know people hear that and say, oh, this is an exaggeration. This is what the memos say. This is what's going on. I've covered Democratic and Republican administrations, and what's happened in the last few months, I really can't think of another precedent in terms of it unraveling so quickly. Yes, there's been inflation in other administrations. There have been ups and downs in the stock market. But it seems like this administration just simply doesn't have a handle on the situation. And their own vice president, not really on board with the president, meaning,
she may be gone.
Laughing off that she was assigned the border crisis. Now her staff is leaving in droves. They say, well, that's routine. Yes, people do move in and out of administration. They've only been there for a few months. This was a historic opportunity. The first black vice president, potentially the first female president coming down the road, if she were to succeed Joe Biden. And they're leaving the ship. That tells you they don't believe they're succeeding, and it tells you they don't believe that Kamala Harris is the likely successor. Or they'd stick around.
Complete incompetence in the Biden administration. Like Navarro says in his book, in Trump time. They left every meeting. Let's get it done in Trump time. I believe they worked really hard to challenge and fight for it.
And they weren't perfect. They made mistakes like every administration.
But there's definitely more qualified people, I think, or more capitalist people.
In a perspective, by the way, I want to say, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you were making a point a moment ago, and I'd like to go back to it, because you're saying, hey, at Real America's Voice, I'm actually able to talk to real people. And you talked about how you have a business background. That's what Donald Trump brought to the White House. And I think I want to connect it to what you're saying. As a journalist, there are so few journalists who have ever met a payroll or know what it's really like. And so when you see these news reports that sort of laugh off inflation in the sense of saying, like, I think it was CNN who had a report suggesting that inflation could be a good thing for consumers. Go talk to the guy who opens that gate for the workers that you were talking about a minute ago. Is inflation good for these folks? Is the fact that they're paying 50% more in some cities and states for gasoline than they were a year ago, is that a good thing?
These
for
are
consumers?
$5,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year hits for the American family. I mean, this is really big.
Think about Thanksgiving. Think about the meat.
And home heating oil prices in the Northeast going to go to $4 or $5 a gallon once it gets cold. We have serious issues. I think there's a bigger picture. I think it's a combination of incompetence and a Marxist takeover of the United States, or an attempt to make the policy like that. So I wanted to ask you a question and to get into some other topics. We have a few minutes. I saw your Blagojevich interview, which was really interesting. Scrappy guy, all Chicago. It was a great interview.
And a Democrat, thank you. And I appreciate you watching it. It's Politics Uncut. It's a video podcast we've been doing. Mark Meadows was the first. Blagojevich is the second. You can find it on Real America's Voice, the website and the app and all of that. And isn't it interesting that he came from Chicago politics, Blagojevich, got into trouble, went too far in terms of the auctioning off of the Obama Senate seat when he became president. Now, Blagojevich's story is that was just, is an inside deal that they were criminalizing politics, and it was Donald Trump, not Barack Obama.
Right.
In the interview,
who had nothing politically to gain by
he said
pardoning.
that Obama was sitting, Blagojevich's young daughters wrote letters to the president, please let our dad out. And a fellow Democrat would not do it. It took a Republican in Donald Trump. Why did he do it? I think he saw the humanity in the family, but I think he also, if you listen closely, Blagojevich was saying that there was sort of a connection, unlikely connection with Trump, that Trump was persecuted, that Trump, they tried to hunt Trump with Russia, and these false narratives, and Blagojevich connected with him, and his wife kept going on TV, Blagojevich's wife, trying to reach out to President Trump. And I think he saw some of those interviews and said, this guy was persecuted like I've been. And he didn't pardon him. He commuted the sentence, which essentially washed it away.
Well, listen,
got him out of
definitely an interesting guy. And if you have a chance to watch it on Real America's Voice News, go do that. So a couple of quick questions, about 2 minutes. Mama Bears uprising?
Absolutely. I think that what we saw in Virginia is just scratching the surface. It starts with critical race theory, but it's a lot bigger. It's what we were talking about with domestic terrorism, that, it's not really domestic terrorism, but that's what it's labeled by, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. And parents, what was beautiful about what's going on in Virginia is that parents stood up, and I think you're going to see that around the country. It is going to be a historic blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want the FBI to become like the KGB. It's very scary. And one more question for you. Are people on the right galvanized to take back the House and Senate next year? And are Democrats shoving this agenda down America's throat because they fear they're going to lose?
Absolutely. That's what's going on. After Virginia, after New Jersey and that near miss in the governor's race that you covered so well here on Election Night on Real America's Voice, you would think that Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden would have had a big powwow with Chuck Schumer, your friend from New York, I say loosely,
Yes.
and said, what do we do, folks? Biden likes to be this middle class. Folks. Here's what you would
Obama
really
did it
do.
too, yeah, folks.
Sit at a table and say, we just got our butts kicked.
Yeah.
Let's scrap some of this socialism. But instead, they're doubling down. Why? Because they know they're going to lose power next year, and they want to get as much as they can done now. That's why they do.
Well, I hope we still have a vibrant and successful country by the next elections coming up. But Ed Henry, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to working with you throughout this next election cycle. And it was really a lot of fun.
Thanks. I'd love to come on anytime. You do a great job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ed. Everybody, Ed Henry with Real America's Voice News now. So when I come back, we got great guests. We're going to tackle the system. So stay with us. This is David Zere. You're watching Breaking Point on Real America's Voice News. Stay tuned.